We're holding towards the second half of Perek Chavtet, chapter 29 of Sefer Mishlei. We're almost done with the Sefer. And many of the ideas that are being expressed towards the end may sound familiar, but as I've explained in the past, many times he repeats an idea for further emphasis, or he adds more information about them. Shevet v'tochachat yiten chochma v'nar meshulach mevish imo. In English, the translation is, a rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left free brings shame to his mother. A very important theme in Sefer Mishlei, one of the topics that he speaks about a lot, is chinuch hayeladim, the education, raising one's children, the various techniques that exist, ideas that need to be applied if we want to be successful. And he definitely talks about the importance of shevet v'tochachat. Shevet meaning the rod, sometimes needs to be employed. Tochachat means the continuous and regular reproof, the musar. We can't just be silent when we see something wrong. We have to speak up and voice our opinion. Right now, it's not a question of whether it will be heard or not. It needs to be spoken. It needs to be said. What the child will do, we hope and pray that everything will work out for the best. But it is our responsibility to use whatever is in our means to use, and there are various stages in life, the different techniques need to be used. So here he re-emphasizes the importance of using the shevet v'tochachat if needed. If necessary, the shevet is a rod. It's painful, but it needs to be used sometimes. The tochacha is the musar, even important for adults. These could make a big difference. Iten chokhmah, it actually leads to wisdom. It leads a child to better understand that what he did was wrong and not acceptable. So these are important. They make a difference in a child's life. Whereas venar meshulach mevishimo, if he's let loose, if we don't train him early, if we don't let him know that what he did was wrong, the one who will suffer the shame will be the mother. The reason why he mentions here the mother is because many times the women tend to be perhaps a little soft on the child, a little easygoing. The husband, the father is not always around, and the husband tends to be more of a disciplinarian. So in the end, the one who's embarrassed for not raising a child properly would be the mother more than anyone else. So obviously, one has to be a little careful with being too soft, not to pamper, lo lefanek yeled. Otherwise, what will happen is mevish imo. It will be embarrassing later on in life. The commentaries explain that the two shevet v'tochacha are used at different stages in a child's life. You cannot use the rod when he's a teenager. Rabbis discourage a parent from being too harsh on his teenage child, because at that point, at that stage in their life, they may rebel and they may do something against the Torah, like hitting back a parent. So therefore, the shevet is better used when the child is still young, not mature at all. And even then, we have to be careful not to abuse it. Whereas the tochacha is not only good for all ages, it's good for adults too. That should always be used regularly. Birvot reshaim yirbe pasha v'tzadikim b'mapaltam yir'u. When the wicked attain greatness, I would not translate this when they attain greatness, but when there is an increase in wicked activity, transgression increases. Yirbe pasha. V'tzadikim b'mapaltam yir'u, and the righteous will see their downfall. Here he is describing a situation which unfortunately has existed throughout history, that many times there's an increase, a large amount of resha, of wickedness in the world, and that can be seen in the many wars. That can be seen in the rate of crime, if it increases. And what does that show? When there's an increase in the rate of crime, when there are many battles, many wars, many problems in society, he calls that virvot reshaim. In other words, there's a lot of resha, a lot of wickedness. Even though it appears to be getting out of hand, even though it appears that it's increasing, and things are out of hand, tzadikim b'mapaltam yir'u. The tzadikim in the end will see in the downfall of the reshaim. Wickedness does not last forever. Evil does not succeed. Even though temporarily it appears to be having the upper hand, it appears to be very destructive. He reminds us that tzadikim mapaltam yiru, the tzadikim will be spared the tzaddikim will see the downfall of the Rashaim. Even though in general, this idea of the tzaddik seeing the downfall of the wicked will happen when Mashiach comes, one does not even have to wait till that time. Even during one's lifetime, hopefully, he will see that the Rasha, or that which is wicked, does not last forever. They can't get away with it forever. Hashem would not allow those who are wicked to rule over the world for too long. Otherwise, imagine we would have World War III, World War IV, World War V, continuous, terrible, destructive wars that everybody suffers. As it is, we've had them and we have them, but not for long. And that's what he reminds us, that even though at a given moment one sees an increase, the tzaddikim in the end are the ones who win, not the wicked. It's like they say with the movies, the good guys always win at the end. That's pretty much the way it works here too. Not to be discouraged, therefore, that in the end, the tzaddikim will have the upper hand. Yaser bincha v'niheka, he goes back now to talking about raising children. Yaser bincha v'niheka v'iten ma'adanim l'nafshecha. Chastise your son, and he will give you rest, and he will grant pleasures to your soul. There is an idea that perhaps is shared by some psychologists or some experts, they call themselves experts in raising children, that you have to be loving to your child, you have to give him a lot of affection. It's true. I mean, you want to be very warm to your children. You want to show them that you care for them. But not at the expense of their education, not at the expense of musar. It is wrong to believe that if you hold back the rod, that if you're kind and nice and giving, the child will love you. That's not true. That's what he says over here. On the contrary, Yaser bincha v'niheka. If you give him reproof, if you chastise him, then will you rest. That will give you rest. Then you will be calm, hopefully, that things will work out. If you do not give him the musar, then you have something to worry about. He's not going to love you more for having been nice to him, for not having given him musar. On the contrary, in his later years, if he's smart, he will be thankful, he will be grateful to his parents who showed him the right way, who gave him musar, who told him off when they needed to. So it's wrong to think that if you're nice to him and only nice to him, he will be nice to you and he will love you for it. So give him the musar, the ten ma'adanim l'nafshecha. That will be the true nachat that you will have, that the parent will have in his later years when he sees that all that musar paid off. It gives him ma'adanim, it will give him pleasure. It will give him the true nachat, the true happiness and satisfaction that he's been looking forward to. If one lets his child do what he wants, he thinks that everything will be okay, he won't bother him. It's not true. He will have no rest if he does not give him musar. If he gives him musar, if he's after him, if he's on top of him, that will eventually give him the menucha that he's looking for, not the other way around. These are important ideas, even though we've talked about them in the past. He needs to remind us, he needs to emphasize them, that one must do his maximum in educating one's child. We have a tremendous responsibility as parents, and we must continuously pray to Hashem. He's also our partner, and hope for the best. The reason I say hope for the best is because, after all, every human being has free will. There's so much control we have over ourselves, over our children. Nevertheless, that does not mean that we are exempt. We must do the maximum and pray and make sure that the friends are good, that the environment that he's in is good. Do our best to keep our eyes open that this child, who is not completely mature yet as a child, does not get into trouble. Otherwise, we are to blame more than anyone else. This pasuk, Be'en chazon yipara am v'shomer Torah asherehu. Without vision, the people become unrestrained, but he who keeps the Torah is fortunate. Chazon could be the vision of the prophets, vision of leadership. When there is no such vision, when there is no nevuah, prophecy, yipara am, they lose their restraint. In other words, they do all sorts of things because there's no leadership. There's no one to guide them, no one to teach them, to give them musar. V'shomer Torah ashreu. Nevertheless, he who keeps the Torah is fortunate. What does that have to do with the chazon? Sharing with us a very important point that is very applicable today in our time, a generation where there's a lot of balei teshuvah. And that is, even though one has become distant, one has been unrestrained for all his life, one has done almost anything his heart desires, if he learns Torah, if he opens up a book of Torah, take anyone who's been doing almost anything, our tradition says that the light of the Torah can bring him back. It's just like the similar midrash that says, if Am Yisrael would keep Shabbat, even if they would worship idols, Hashem would forgive them. Worship idols is the worst thing in the world. It's a complete contradiction to Torah. But people in the past have had double standards. They wanted to have the cake and eat it too. They believe that this has some koach, some power, during the time that there was a yetzer, an evil inclination to worship idols. Witchcraft is powerful. It does have some effect. But they didn't completely deny the existence of God. So in other words, they tried to have it both ways, even though it's a contradiction. They were very far removed from Torah. Hashem says, but if they were to keep the Shabbat, I would forgive them. Why? Because ultimately, whoever observes Shabbat properly, the light of Shabbat will bring him back to normalcy. It will bring him back. Eventually he will realize it's ridiculous. It's crazy for him to continue to do so. Somehow the Shabbat will bring him back, because Shabbat is also a contradiction to whatever it is that he's doing. What is Shabbat? We observe Shabbat, we give testimony to the fact that Hashem created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh, what he expects of us, what the purpose of life is. Shabbat is a day of rest, where the neshama has a chance to express itself. There's more to this world than just working. Shabbat is a very powerful message. When one keeps Shabbat properly, it's 1/60th of Olam Haba, of the world to come. That what he feels, what he experiences on Shabbat, it's the greatest thing that we have. It's a very precious gift, the rabbis tell us. So Shabbat has that power to bring back a Jew. And we encourage Jews who have been far from Torah to begin to keep Shabbat. If he hasn't been keeping anything, and Shabbat may be too difficult for him, so we tell him to take anything. Commit yourself to something, even that which is easy. Just begin. Tefillin for the men, lighting candles for the women. There are many ways for a Jew or Jewess to begin to commit themselves, as long as they are regular, as long as they are consistent. That one mitzvah, that one commitment, hopefully will lead them to become more committed to Torah. So it's okay to begin with that which is easy, but there is no doubt that Shabbat is one of the most powerful ones, that if one keeps it properly, that has the power to bring him back completely, even if he was far away. The same is true with the light of the Torah. When one regularly learns Torah, he's not only recharging his spiritual batteries, which gives him the strength to do battle with the Yetzer Hara, he's not only becoming knowledgeable, he's not only fulfilling a mitzvah, there is a light in the Torah that will not only feed his neshama and stimulate him, but will also strengthen him in such a way that if he was so far away, he will come to see the truth, and therefore leave all the shtuyot, all the nonsense that he was so immersed in. So an individual who's immersed in a lot of nonsense, materialism, whatever you want to call it, very distant from Torah, has committed all the sins in the book. If you ever succeed in bringing him to a class of Torah, and he does so regularly, leave it to the Torah. The Torah in itself will illuminate him, and he will come back, guaranteed. I've always said this before, that I assure anyone that if a Reform rabbi or a conservative rabbi, somebody who's distant from Judaism, from authentic Judaism, takes it upon himself to learn Gemara and Zohar, L'Shem Shamayim, in other words, to understand everything, not just to read it as an academic challenge, but to learn it, to understand it, word by word, and he covers it all, he will gain so much yirat shamayim, so much fear of heaven, just by reading the stories of the rabbis, just by reading all the literature, that I have no doubt that it will have an effect on him, that it will influence him, and he will become a different man. He will change his mind about many things. He will have the proper hashkafot, the proper outlook, because he has absorbed all of that, as long as he did not do it out of curiosity. But even if he does so out of curiosity, mitoch shelo lishma yavo lishmo, the Rabbi tells us, when you learn Torah, it's okay to learn it from curiosity. It's okay to learn it for academic reasons. If you cover it all, and you have an open mind, you have to begin to have an open mind. Obviously, if you're stubborn and you don't believe in it, you just read it, then it's going to be difficult. Then no matter what people tell you, what you read will not make a difference. But there's no doubt that the Torah has that koach, has that power to take someone who was very distant, who had all sorts of ideas that are contrary to the Torah, and make him change his mind. So that's what he says over here. Even though the Ben Chazon Nipara'am, people are unrestrained and they do all sorts of things when there's no leadership, there's no one guiding them, bring him to Torah. Torah Ashreo. He's fortunate because he will gain so much. It will change his life. Bidvarim lo yivaser eved ki yavin ve'en ma'aneh. A slave cannot be chastised with words because he will understand but without response. An eved, who is he talking about? A slave. There are some people who are so distant, they've become slaves of their yetzer. The remez over here, what he's hinting here, is not just an ordinary slave where it might take more than just words to give him instructions. Just like a horse, you want to get him to run. A donkey sometimes, a mule, stubborn, you have to hit him. He says, Bidvarim lo yivaser eved. A slave, sometimes you cannot get him to do what you want just with words. What he's trying to say is that sometimes one is an eved. One is a slave to his own ta'avot, to his own yetzarim, to his own evil inclinations. In that case, words alone may not do it. Ki yavin ve'en ma'aneh. Even if you hear and you understand what is being told to you, en ma'aneh, there will be no reaction, no response, no commitment after hearing it so much and so much. And where do we see this? We see this a lot with people who have terrible midot, terrible habits. They're not just influenced from words. It's very difficult for some people to disconnect, to let go of habits that they formed. And sometimes one requires harsh treatment. Sometimes Me'ashamayim, they send him down a lot of pain and suffering to wake him up. And we see this, of course, very much with people who have become addicted to drugs or have become alcoholic. Very difficult for them to, what's the word for it? To come out of it, to recover from it. There's a special word for it. To rehabilitate them. Yes, I think rehabilitate. Rehabilitation of these individuals can happen, but it takes several steps. It takes time. Of course, it takes the desire, the interest of the individual to begin with, if he has an interest in helping himself. But it's not easy. That's what he says over here. So sometimes when one has become a slave to his own habits, bidvarim lo yivaser, just words alone may not make a difference. He really needs a lot of treatment. And that is the importance of learning musar regularly. We all need musar. Musar, when we're learning it ourselves, nobody's criticizing us. We're actually reading the words on our own, and hopefully they will make a difference in our life. These words will help us get to where we want to get. But it's not easy. It has to be done regularly. Chazita ish ma'atz bidvarav tikva lechsil mimeno. This is a similar idea that he has said in the past in different words. Have you ever seen a hasty man? A man hasty with his words. There is more hope for a fool than for him. How could there be more hope for a fool than for him? What is he doing by being hasty? In Arabic there's a saying, Il-ajal min shaitan. Hastiness is from the Satan. Comes from the Satan. In Farsi too, or hapzizut in Hebrew, min Satan. It's not good if a person is hasty and rushes into something. He will make mistakes. Simple. He will make mistakes. And here too, one who acts in haste, he says, Tikva lechsil mimeno, a fool has more hope than him. Why does a fool have more hope than him? Because a fool, even though he's a fool, but if he is calm and he does not rush into something, he actually might be more successful. He might get things done. He's not so smart. He's a fool. There's more hope for a fool than for someone who does things hastily without thinking about it, without seeking the advice of others. That is a simple interpretation of one who is atz bidvarav. He's also talking about something else over here. What's atz bidvarav? Very quick with his words. Through the past few perakim, he's put an emphasis on certain individuals who the rabbis tell us enam mekablim pnei shechinah. As a result of their terrible actions, they will not have the zechut to see the Shekhinah. Every neshama, when it departs from this world, longs to see the Shekhinah, longs to be close to the Shekhinah. It's a very special feeling over there. We have no idea what it's like. And imagine somebody being left out of that. You're unwelcome. Persona non grata upstairs. That is, of course, a condition that the individual did not do the teshuvah. And the four individuals who do not partake in being close to the Shekhinah are those who throughout their life have been hanfanim. They used to flatter people, flatter the wicked, which gave encouragement to the wicked. Those who are letzanim, those who have mockers, who mocked those who do good things, because that may have caused some to be discouraged or to stop doing something that is right. The shakranim, those who have regularly lied. And the fourth one is kat midabrei lashon hara, mesaprei lashon hara, those who have gossiped all the time, spoken rechilut, spoken about other people, said terrible things about other people. Here, he's talking more about the one who's involved in lashon hara, because that is why he uses the words chazita ish atz bidvarav. He's quick with his words. He's quick to talk about someone without checking it out. We hear rumors, we hear lashon hara, and one has to be very careful. If you heard it already, not to accept it. Lashon hara, I don't accept. It's lashon hara, I don't want to hear it. But you've already heard it. Well, then I don't accept it. I won't believe in it, and I for sure will not continue to spread it, to talk about it to other people. A lot of people are try to be observant, try to be careful in so many mitzvot, and they deserve a lot of credit, whether it's in praying shachrit, batikin in the morning, whether it's not watching movies, keeping kosher home. But when it comes to lashon hara, when it comes to speaking about others, they're not careful at all. They will shame others in public. They will yell at others in public. They will harm someone's reputation by speaking about them. That is a terrible avon. It's a terrible sin. It's very difficult to repair, because you have to bring back, if it was shame, you have to bring everybody back who was present at the time the individual was shamed, and say, I'm sorry, I want to ask his forgiveness in front of all of you who were present last time. Maybe they're no longer around. They've already built a reputation. This man may not be good because somebody else said that he's no good, that he's a thief, that he's wicked. So you have to be extremely careful to keep your thoughts and feelings to yourself and not share them with others, unless, of course, you're trying to get help, with a doctor or something, or a rabbi. You can share, and even then, you can tell him that is your opinion. That is not necessarily the fact. That is your suspicions about somebody or something. Very, very careful with speaking about others, especially when it's not completely substantiated. But even if it's substantiated, if it's no good, it's still lashon hara. Lashon hara doesn't mean that it's false. It's true. Lashon hara is true, because if it's false, it's called motzi shemra. It's called, in English, I think slander. Slander comes closest to something which is not true. Or is slander true? Libel. Yeah, but is something slanderous true, or is it false? I think it's false, right? But according to our halakha, even if something is true, it's a sur. Can't just give somebody a bad name. Even if it's true what he did, keep it to yourself. It's none of your business to share it with others. But the yetzer of people, of course, is to be happy if somebody did something wrong. It's to talk about it. Not everyone, but some people have a problem with their atz bidvarav. They're very quick with their words. They like to talk, and they have this weakness. Yeah.
What about like reading, for example, the Jewish Journal or other papers that talk about occasionally people in the...
Newspapers are one of the greatest sources of lashon hara and slander. They don't realize what they're doing. They're committing a terrible sin by spreading this information. They're doing a big disservice to the community. Don't believe it. And you've known, of course, probably till now, that the biggest newspapers in this country are not necessarily accurate in what they report because they have an interest. There are very few writers out there, journalists, that only say the truth or give you the facts as they are without, bending the words or using their own adjectives to try to influence the reader to believe or to accept what they're saying. There's a slant in the LA Times, New York Times, and maybe Washington Post too, against the Jewish state, against the Jewish people. I think I'm not the only one that says that, right? There is a certain degree of anti-Semitism in the newspapers because somehow they don't like us. And many of the writers will write an article in such a way that you could see that they're not sympathetic to our cause. That's not fair, that's not good journalism. That is lashon hara, very plain and simple. Next pasuk, מפנק מנוער עבדו וחריתו יהיה מנון. If one pampers his slave from childhood, he will ultimately be a ruler. Well, the simple explanation of this pasuk is that obviously you can't pamper, you can't spoil your workers. Otherwise, in the end, they become very confident of themselves, and it's very hard later to tell them what to do. They've become the master, they've become the boss. That's a simple interpretation, that you have to be careful not to pamper your slave. Otherwise, the harito yemanon, in the end, he will be the boss. Who are we talking about? Who's the slave over here? The guf, the homer, the material. If you pamper it, you get it used to liking certain things and doing certain things early on, mino'ar, v'harito yemanon. In the end, this body, the physical body, will be the master over the neshama. As we explained before, some people are so immersed in their ta'avot and their desires, it's hard to get them away from it. Later on, habits that are formed later on in life is harder to get rid of them. The younger you are, the easier it is. So you have to be careful not to pamper. People who get you, what's pamper? What does pamper mean? That you've gotten used to certain things, to having certain things. It's hard to let go of them. Therefore he says, just be careful with that. Don't pamper yourself. Don't be an eved, to your yetzer, because that's what one is doing when he's pampering himself, whether it is with food or sleep. In the end, the homer, the body will be a master over your neshama, whereas the neshama was really the one that's supposed to be the master, in control. Next pasuk, Ish af yigare madonu bal chemar af pasha. A quick-tempered man stirs up strife, and a wrathful man abounds in transgression. Again, he brings up, perhaps this is towards the end of the sefer, he's again emphasizing the various midot, characteristics, that should not be tolerated, that one should be extra careful with, and one of them is anger. Both the words af and chema mean anger, even though chema is even worse than af. It's burning anger. One has to be careful with anger, because one who is continuously angry, ish af, if he has a temper, yigare madon, it stirs up strife, or in other words, it causes one to fight. He's always fighting, he's always arguing. Because he's a temperamental person, he will more easily become involved in arguments. Yigare madon, arguments and strife. Ubal chema rav pasha, similarly, one who is a very, very temperamental person, or he calls it here a wrathful man, abounds in transgression. What that means is that because of his anger, he will come easily to sin, to do the wrong things. Why does this happen? Because when one becomes angry, he loses control. He says things that he later regrets. Hopefully he regrets it. He will do things that he will regret. He loses control. Rabbis tell us, Kol hakoes kilu oved avodah zarah. Whoever gets angry, it is as though he's worshipping a strange God. In other words, he's worshipping this God in him that is strange, because he's losing control. He's worshipping their anger. And that is why it's something which is very sinful and a very terrible midah that one has to work on if he has that. Now, some people have it more than others. And obviously that's another problem. But one that gets regularly angry, the rabbis tells in Pirkei Avot, which one is worse? One that gets regularly angry, but he calms down quickly? Or one who becomes, very rarely does he get angry, but once he gets angry, he doesn't calm down easily? He tells the one who regularly gets angry is worse, because he's regularly becoming angry. That's worse than the one that once in a while he becomes angry, but then it's very difficult for him to calm down. The one who's coming down very quickly is beautiful, it's very nice, but he's also getting angry very, very often. That's not a good midah. And obviously, in order to work on one's anger, there's a lot to learn about the hashgacha b'Hashem, bitachon b'Hashem. There's a lot of beautiful midot that one can acquire that will help him deal with his anger. It is possible to deal with. It requires a certain amount of training, having the proper hashkafot, in realizing that everything is min hashamayim, why get angry over nonsense. In other words, it is possible. A person has to retrain his mind. It's not just holding back your anger, shutting your mouth. You can't just tell somebody, don't get angry. No, it requires a training of the various things that get him angry, why they shouldn't get him angry. Why rarely should one get angry. I mean, anger is a midah to be used. It is to be used at certain times, as long as you don't lose control, as long as deep down you're in control of yourself. On the surface you may show the anger, as needs to be done with children and with certain individuals who are doing the wrong thing, that you are upset at them. Deep down, one should not lose control. It is a terrible midah. It leads to strife, it leads to arguments, and it leads to sin, because he will make mistakes. That's why he calls it over here, he calls it Bal Chema Raf Pasha. What's Pasha? Pasha is negligence too, Peshi'ah. He will do things by negligence. Negligence is not something done unintentionally, something done by accident. You know what negligence means? That you should have been more careful. It's the closest thing to doing something intentionally. You are negligent. You should have been more careful. You should have been cautious. So Pasha here, it's not just any sins. It leads to all sorts of terrible sins that could have been avoided had you controlled yourself. So that is the midah of kas. The next midah that he repeats and emphasizes how terrible it is and how useless it is and how silly it is gava, is arrogance. Gavat adam tashpilenu ushfal ruach itmoch kavod. A man's haughtiness or arrogance will humble him, but one who of humble spirit will grasp honor. Also, a characteristic that some people have, not everyone, Baruch Hashem, but some people are arrogant. What is arrogance? A person who feels highly about himself, therefore looks down at others. Somehow, in his mind, he thinks not only highly of himself, but he feels, I guess, that by showing this or by behaving in such a way, it will make him better or higher than others. I mean, that's what arrogance means, right? That he somehow needs to do something or feel or act in a certain way to show that he's better or higher, smarter than others. In the end, this gava not only is nonsense, but tashpileno. Here he's trying to become higher and better by behaving or thinking in such a way. In the end, he will come down. So that gava, the gava, not only is something terrible, but it will actually bring him down. People who are arrogant, in the end, the arrogance will humble them. It will bring them down. It will defeat them. So Shlomo Melech again warns us, be careful with this midah. This midah can easily be gotten by people who have become very rich, people who are very smart. And there are some people who are not rich, not smart, and for some reason they're arrogant. And I don't have an explanation for that. Yeah, but it's psychological. It makes them feel better. They think they have something better. They feel somehow, I don't know what it is. But people are arrogant for whatever reason that they have, that they feel better or superior to someone else. This arrogance is dangerous. And he tells us, chaval, it's going to bring you down. Instead of bringing you up as one may want, in the end he's going to come down. And the other way around, one who is humble, shval ruach itmoch kavod, he will receive the kavod, he will receive the honor, he will be elevated. He wasn't seeking to be elevated, he wasn't seeking to be on top, but because of his humbleness, that is what's going to bring someone up. If anything brings somebody up, that he is accepted by everyone. I mean, somebody can insist on being on top, can be the boss by using his money, whatever. Is he liked? Is he accepted? No, not necessarily. But for somebody to truly have true kavod, it means a true acceptance by people, that comes through humbleness. Just the opposite. In other words, he wants to be low, he wants to stay low. That will bring him up. Rabbis tell us, Kol mi sherodef achar asrara, asrara borachat mimeno. Whoever pursues honors, pursues high positions, those positions of honor will run away, will turn away from him. Whoever runs away from those positions of honor will catch up with him. In other words, it's not by the effort of one pursuing something that he will get it necessarily. It's only those who deserve it. Just a quick story that you may have heard from me or from others that shows what arrogance can do. And when I say arrogance, I also mean overconfidence. Famous story with one of the Rothschilds. As you know, the Rothschild family has been blessed. They're wealthy. At least most of them are. They have been. And in the very beginning, many of them were religious. But they had lots of money. And what did we just say? That what does money do to one? Makes him arrogant, overconfident. Makes him do all sorts of things that are not right. gives him the wrong ideas, and he may lose himself. He may not realize that money is min hashamayim, as the Torah Kedusha tells us already. V'eshman yishurun v'yiv'at. When Am Yisrael reaches a certain level of comfort, they rebel. They forget who has given us the money. So one Rothschild, one of them, once expressed to someone that he from hunger will not die. He may die from being run over by a car. That, of course, that can happen. He may die from natural causes, for sure, everybody does. But he said from hunger, he will not die, because he was, Baruch Hashem, blessed, and he figured that he has enough money to retire, enough money for the rest of his life, enough money for his children and grandchildren, so he said confidently that from hunger he will not die. One day he entered a safe. He had like we have walk-in closets, he had a walk-in safe that he went into to get some cash or some papers or whatever it was, and the door locked shut behind him, and there was no way for him to get out. And he knocked on the door and nobody heard him. Apparently there must have been some air inside, because he was able to live. He did not choke from a lack of oxygen. There must have been some holes. There was some air, ventilation. But nobody heard his cries. So he realized what's going to happen to him. Sooner or later he's going to die from hunger. He had no pen, so he cut himself in the finger, and with his own blood he wrote on a piece of paper, "This is coming to me, because I once said that I would never die of hunger." The rich man Rothschild would not die of hunger, died of hunger. Even though he died with his money in the safe. But what good did the money do to him? Because of his overconfidence, because of arrogance. That can give me that. A person has to be very careful not to open his mouth, because there are malachim, there are angels that catch the words and they say amen, to a curse, or to somebody who wishes it on someone else or on himself, or even though he's not really wishing himself, but he's just saying something that is not too smart. There may come a time that it will turn against him. That's the problem with arrogance, that people do not realize that at one moment one may be on top, but very easily the next moment he can be at the bottom. Why? Because of his arrogance, his overconfidence. Next pasuk, Cholek im ganav, soneh nafsho, ala yishma' velo yagid. He who shares with a thief hates his soul. He hears an oath but does not testify. Cholek im ganav, what does it mean to split the spoils? Or as he calls it here, who shares with a thief. What is he sharing with a thief? The rabbis have a term called Mesayeh bidei over avera. It is a sin. It is not right for one to help those who are committing an avera. You don't want to help somebody do an avera. You don't want to invite somebody for Shabbat if you know he's going to drive to you on Shabbat. You are helping him do a sin. There are ways to avoid this. Another time, if you want to know, I'll tell you how we can avoid this problem. But otherwise, you have to be careful not to help somebody do an avera. When you buy from a thief, when you know he's a thief, you're encouraged to continue, to do business with stolen goods. Or if you're whether you're the businessman buying from the thief directly, or whether you're a client going to the store that sells stolen goods, regardless, you are encouraging this to continue. And the more so if one actually cholek, if one splits the profits with a thief. What is the problem over here? The problem is soneh nafsho. One who does this really does not like his neshama. Why not? What does that have to do with anything? Because as a result of this one activity, rabbis tell us, avira goreret avira. One sin, we have a tradition, leads to another sin. It's not that you can limit yourself to one sin. One sin leads to other sins. And since you allow yourself to do other sins, your soneh nafsho means you don't care about your neshama. What other sin will come about as a result of splitting with a thief? Allah yishma' velo yagid. He may be asked to swear. Do you know anything about him? No, I don't. So he's going to be swearing falsely. Or he's going to be asked, do you swear, that this is what happened or this did not happen? And he will, again, swear falsely. Not give the right information. And that's also a sin. One sin will lead to another. So this is the idea of soneh nafsho. Soneh nafsho meaning he does not concern himself with his neshama in doing something like this, which will lead him to other avonot as well. He's only hurting himself. One has to be therefore careful, lo lesayah, not to encourage one to do an avera. Rabbis tell us in this pasuk that, again, we're not just talking about somebody who tolerates this activity. Definitely, we also mean one who had the idea to begin with, who gave him this idea, or encourages him, or praises him. You did a great job this time. You broke into a bank. Anything that comes close to encouragement, tolerance, or for sure splitting the spoils, you are being Messiah. You are actually an associate. You are helping him to do an Averah. And in Halacha, it's spelled out what one may do and what is considered helping a sinner and what not. If you are going to give parnasah to someone who's open on Shabbat, that may be a question, that may be a problem. There are questions in halakha, what you can do, what constitutes helping one who is committing a sin. Am I helping him directly to do the sin on Shabbat? Maybe not. So maybe it's okay for me to buy from him on a Tuesday. It all depends if what I am doing is going to really help him or not. If it is, in a way, it's putting a stumbling block before a blind person. He's continuing to do this. That is all called Misayya b'dei over Averah, helping one to do an Averah. It's a sur, if you're really helping him directly. As the rabbis tell us, Lo achbera ganav, chora ganav. It's a famous term in Gemara. It is not the mouse that is the thief, it's the hole that you left not patched up that allowed the mouse to come in and steal the food. So it's not the mouse that we need to blame, it's the hole. Close the hole and the mouse won't get in. Yes?
What about, for example, inviting non-observant people to your home for Shabbos that you know they're going to drive anyway?
That's the example I gave.
Right, but you said that they're driving, they wouldn't drive otherwise, but they would drive otherwise.
Not to your home.
Not to your home, but like Chabad, for example, they're always inviting non-religious people, and they know that they're driving, but they figure that they're giving them something that they wouldn't ordinarily have.
Yeah, there's no permission in the halakha, if you know 100% for sure that they're going to come to you by driving. There's no such permission in the halakha to do so, to encourage them to do a sin of being Mechalel Shabbat. There are so many ways that you can do it in a way that is permissible that there's no excuse for that. Unless there's a chance that they will come before Shabbat and then they came anyway. So I don't really know what these individuals are doing and how they're doing it, so I can't really render judgment on their maaseh, but the halakha is very clear. And I've asked quite a few rabbis about it. There's no exception to that even. You need to find a solution. You don't allow one to do a mitzvah through an averah. That's another clear halakha, right? To do a mitzvah through an averah.
I mean, you're not forcing them to try.
Yeah. It's only in saving one's life that we say, let us save, even though we have to desecrate one Shabbat to save his life, but he will be able to observe many Shabbatot as a result of the desecration of one Shabbat because of pikuach nefesh. But obviously we do whatever we can to bring back a Jew to his roots, but not on the cost or on the expense of being Mechalel Shabbat. There are ways to get around this, to do it in a permissible way. So therefore there's no excuse for it. By doing it through a hotel room, through a taxi. There are many ways that if you really, really have to get somebody to shul on Yom Kippur and he lives 20 miles away, and for some reason there are ways to do it without him being the driver of the car, without him doing the Hilul Shabbat. You can put up the money for one night. Right, a taxi will only be a Marit Ayin. It will not even be a Derabanan so much. I mean, Marit Ayin is Derabanan, but there are ways to do it. With a taxi and other ways that will avoid Hilul Shabbat. It's not like you have no other way. So it would have to be something very unusual. That, for example, a woman is going to give birth. That's not so unusual, but you actually drive her yourself. You don't wait for an ambulance or taxi to come, because it's dangerous too, right? So or it would be some similar situation where maybe it would be possible, but each situation requires, of course, a rabbi to look into the circumstances and what is permissible and how it's permissible. But just to give a blanket permission to people to come to you on Shabbat, it's okay to drive, you have to tell them it's a sur. If they still come to you, see that? You see the difference? That's something else. You have to let them know it's a sur. Anything which is clearly, what?
What if they know that according to Orthodox rules, it is asur, but
You have to let them know it's our obligation as observant Jews to let know those who are not observant. For those halachot or mitzvot that are clearly stated in the Torah, it's a sur for you. Ochiach tochiach tamitecha applies especially to those things that are clearly stated in the Torah. Those things that are not clearly stated in the Torah, rabbis tell us, mutav shiyu shogegin velo yu mezidin. Sometimes it's better for them to do things unintentionally, not knowing, because once you tell them and they still do it, they're doing it now intentionally. So there are certain categories of mitzvot that you're better off not telling them if the chances are they won't listen. If there's always a 50-50 chance that they will listen to you, then you tell them even something midrabanan. Especially if you have influence over them, it's a friend or a relative, you got to tell them until they hit you and tell you to stop telling me. So when it comes to preaching, and I mean, as you know, you have to at least let them know once. At least the bare minimum is once. Especially if it's a community, a lot of people. This is wrong. You're better off staying at home. And if they still come, that's a whole different story. Yeah, you don't have to close the doors and throw them out. You know, maybe something good will come out of it, but that's not the way to do it. Yeah.
you're invited, but it's better that you don't come.
No, you are invited, and let's figure out a way where you can attend without breaching Shabbat. Are you interested in keeping Shabbat properly? It's not just the gefilte fish. It's the whole spirit of Shabbat. How do you keep the whole Shabbat? By observing Shabbat. You know, that's the right way to do it. People have come and rented a room in a hotel for Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. You know, cheap hotel, just for the night. You know, you can sleep over. You can sleep over. The neighbor will find you a room. If they've come before Shabbat, then they leave on their own. You can't. I mean, you're not going to have to stop them. Call the police. Stop them. But they have at least made an effort to come to you before Shabbat, and you've offered them a place to stay. If they choose later on, that's something else. At least you've done your maximum. You let them know. All right. Next pasuk. Chardat Adam yiten mokesh v'otach b'Adonai yisugav. A snare brings terror to a person. I don't like this translation. But he who trusts in Hashem will be safeguarded. Chardat Adam yiten mokesh. He calls it terror. Okay. Mokesh he calls a snare. A snare, a trap. Chardat Adam. What's harada? Harada is when a person has certain fears and anxieties. Very simple words. He calls it terror. And in our generation, terror means something completely different. We know what terror is. So therefore, terror is not really so accurate. You could say he's terrified. Okay, but it means anxiety and fears. Herdat Adam iten mokesh. It will be a snare to him. It will trap him. There is a different word for it. Today it's called stress. A person can be overstress himself because of his fears and lack of bitachon b'Hashem. That's why he says, "Uboteach b'Hashem yisugav." He who has complete trust in Hashem will be safeguarded. The difference between one who is anxious, one who has fear, and one who is calm is bitachon b'Hashem. As we've said many, many times, depending on one's hashkafot, depending on how one sees life, his outlook, if he has the proper outlook, the proper hashkafot, then his attitude is different. He's able to deal with situations differently. He's calmer. He doesn't have the same worries. We all have occasionally a worry or two, but we stop ourselves if we remember that everything is in the hands of Hashem, except for the fear of heaven. Everything is in the hands of Hashem, so why worry over it? Why worry over the results of something that we don't have full control, unless we have control? And that is our mitzvot. In Maasim Tovim. So Chardat Adam yiten mokesh, it will be a snare. In other words, it's going to cause him problems. Where one who puts his trust in Hashem, he will be safeguarded. Another idea behind the words of Chardat Adam, Charda also means behilut. One who's chared to do something, he rushes into something, he's trying to make it rich fast. Yiten mokesh, it will make him fall. It will be a snare. One has to be content with whatever Hashem has given him, and not to be hared, to be quick, to rush into something, to become rich. And that all that comes from what? From a lack of bitachon b'Hashem. Things should not be done behilut, as we said before, hastily. It should be done b'yeshuv hadat. If you don't do it with yeshuv hadat, with calm, with peace of mind, you will have a mokesh chas v'shalom. One will make mistakes. But therefore, one who has bitachon b'Hashem, content with what he has, he's calm about things, yisugav, he will be safeguarded from many problems in life. And this is a very, very important point. And B'ezrat Hashem, we'll be talking a lot more about the whole idea of bitachon, maybe after we finish Mishlei, how it makes a big difference in one's life if one has complete bitachon b'Hashem, because in the end, he will see that had he just been fearful about it and worried about it, we would not have gotten anywhere. There's something called hashgacha, which we will see a little bit more in the next Pesukim. The hashgacha of Hashem permeates everything in our life. People do not fully comprehend this, and that is why they don't have the bitachon b'Hashem. So let's see the next pasuk. Actually, before we go to the next pasuk, remember we spoke about the one who shares with the thief, the one who does all sorts of terrible things, not acceptable things. He has reason to be chared. The commentaries tell us, you know who's chared? We know who has cherda. Cherat adam miten mokesh. One who has reason to fear because he's done something terrible wrong. Throughout his life, he will have this problem. He will have this guilty conscience. Are they going to catch him? Are they going to audit him? Are they going to come after him? Only because he's done something wrong. So this cherda will be mokesh for him. And who is to blame? He is. Boteach b'Hashem, of course, one who's been always trustful in Hashem, does not do things wrong, does not try to make it rich fast, does things right, will not have all these fears. The next pasuk is about Hashgachat Hashem. Rabim mevakshim pnei moshel u'me'adonai mishpat ish. Many seek the countenance of a ruler, but the judgment of a person is from Hashem. A lot of people will do their best to hire the best attorneys, to speak to the judge, to speak to the ruler, to gain his favor. Rabim mevakshim pnei moshel, aval me'Hashem mishpat ish. In the end, they don't realize that if you're found guilty or innocent in court, or if the king or judge favors you, it has nothing to do with the jury. It has nothing to do with the kind of judge. It has nothing to do with anything except with what Hashem. Hashem is the one who's going to make the determination if one is guilty or innocent. Now there are people who are innocently in jail. Innocently. They shouldn't be in jail. Let's talk about Pollard for a minute. He's Jewish. He did a very good thing. He's locked away. The Jewish state did not protect him, and they could have. But obviously, even though all of that is true, but min hashamayim, there's a reason for that too. Otherwise, he would have gotten out. Nobody is stuck in jail forever for something that he has never done. And even though he may not have done that which they accused him of, there's something else on the record. And we know very, very clearly there's something called kaparat avonot. We don't just say it. We're supposed to believe in it. That every suffering that one has to undergo is a tremendous atonement, and one has to be thankful that he received that atonement here and not upstairs. It removes a tremendous bundle of sins that he may have done 20 years ago that he has completely forgotten about them. And now, in a couple months, he takes care of it, especially if he's around bad people in jail. You know, some jails are luxurious, but some are terrible. So one has to be thankful that the kapara was taken care of in this world. Ultimately, me'Hashem mishpat ish. You've hired the best attorney. You tried your best, but me'Hashem mishpat ish, not from anybody else. Another interpretation here is that Rabbi mevakshim pnei moshel. A lot of people may have to go and ask a favor for a king to overturn a decree, to change his mind. Me'Hashem mishpat ish. When it comes to seeking the help of Hashem, you don't have to hire anybody. You yourself, on your own, individually, can turn to Hashem. When it comes to Moshe, we may need a whole assembly of people to go and ask him to do something for us. When it comes to Hashem, just turn on your own. Go by yourself, and Hashem will help. The last pasuk is a very good pasuk to finish the perek. To'avat tzadikim ish avel v'to'avat rasha yeshar darech. An unjust man is an abomination to the righteous, and a person whose way is straight is an abomination of a wicked man. The wicked men don't like those who are righteous. The righteous don't like those who are wicked. Now that's obvious. What is he telling us here? He's telling us a very important point, that if you really want to be a tzaddik, you want to be a righteous man, then you have to abhor, you have to detest any shemetz, any indication of something which is not right, something which is crooked, stay away from it, have no part of it. That is a tzaddik. A tzaddik does not compromise. If he smells a rat, as they say in English, he stays away from it. In the same way, the opposite way, that a rasha does not like everything that is right, everything that is righteous, it doesn't speak to him because he's crooked. In the same way, a true tzaddik, how do you recognize a tzaddik? Not only by the way he behaves and he talks, but the fact that he stays away. He does not take a chance. He does not associate with anything that is evil, anything that is not right, anything that smells no good. He simply avoids it. That is the correct attitude. He said, we've been speaking about the ways of tzaddikim, we've been speaking about the ways of reshaim. How do you ultimately determine, how can you tell if somebody is a tzaddik or rasha? Just by what he likes, what he's attracted to, what he stays away from. A tzaddik never does anything which is crooked, doesn't take a chance, doesn't associate with people like that. That is a true tzaddik. In other words, he's telling us that this is the nature of a tzaddik, not just a tzaddik in one little area. Tzaddik all around, that even if it's a little bit suspicious, there's something wrong with it, he doesn't take a chance. A rasha doesn't care because he doesn't like anything which is straight. He does everything crooked. He takes advantage of people, he cheats people, he lies. It's all together, it's the whole package. It's either the whole package or none. You have a few people that are trying to be parve in between, but that's not tzaddik, for sure not. A true tzaddik is that he stays away from anything that is not right. And that is how you can tell, you can get to know a person that in all his life, in all his activities, in his behavior, at home with his wife, with his children, with his neighbors, with his colleagues, everything is just right. That is a tzaddik. Not that at home he's one way and in the street he's another way. That is a two-faced person. That is not a tzaddik. In the same way that a rasha goes in his way, a tzaddik goes in his way. All the time, not sometimes. And that is a good way to finish the perek, because there are things in life that are crooked, or as he calls it over here, avil, corrupt, crooked. And those who are interested in doing things that are right have to be careful with not having anything to do with that which smells or appears to be crooked, if they want to be righteous people.